NFL here as the best football writer in the country. Peter King joins the program. NBC Sports, Football Morning in America. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing really well. So I don't know how you've done this over the past 3 years. I'll include the 4 years overall, because you 4 years ago you called before the season started Rams over the Patriots. Well, they both got there, and you have nailed the previous 3 Super Bowl winners. Like at this time of the season, it's very difficult to do. You're calling Bills over Packers this year in the Super Bowl. Do the Bills have any common traits from the previous 3 or 4 years when you pick your Super Bowl teams?
Yeah, what I've decided to do in more recent years, in prior years, I made these long checklists of what I like and what I didn't like about every team and all that. And honestly, recently I just said, look, I'm gonna pick the team that I just get the best feeling about all aspects of their team. I'm just going to pick the team I get the best feeling about. I'm going to pick them to win the Super Bowl. Now, I have not felt as good about a team, as I have with Buffalo this year in a long time. I just think they've got tremendous depth. They have the best weapon in the NFL at quarterback. As much as I love Patrick Mahomes, I just think there are so many things that Josh Allen does well. Throws the deep ball, plows over linebackers. I think he's going to be doing that a little bit less this year. Mm-hmm. But I just think there's a lot to like, a lot to love, honestly, about this team this year. So that's kind of what I've done. I mean, the weirdest one probably was picking Tampa 2 years ago, coming off a 7-9 season, even though they had Brady, in free agency. But my theory on the Bucs a couple of years ago was that the previous year, with Jameis Winston playing, he threw 6 interceptions and gave away the last 2 games. So they could have been 9-7. And ending the year hot, but instead they just gave away games and finished 7-9. So everybody thought same old Bucs, but I just said they're not the same old Bucs. They got a really talented team. They just had a quarterback who gave too many games away, and now they have the ultimate quarterback who never gives games away or very rarely gives games away. So I like to try to pick teams or a team that I just feel the best about coming out of training camp.
Enjoyed reading all your predictions. This one surprised me. While I think the Saints are going to be a playoff team, you have the Saints as the 1 seed in the NFC. And how much is that with the moves they made, or is it anti-Tampa Bay with the Brady news and the injuries on the offensive line?
I think the injuries on the offensive line are going to be a factor. I can't tell you how much of a factor, but they will be a factor. When you're starting a guy who you really didn't plan to play this year at left guard in Godeke, you're starting Robert Hainsey at center, who's never played a game at center in his career. He was a right tackle at Notre Dame. He never started a game at center. And then you got Shaq Mason, kind of an old standby at right guard. The injury with the Bucs that I'm just not really sure if it's going to be a factor at all. I think they have the best right tackle in football in Tristan Wirfs, and he missed a bunch of time this summer with an oblique injury. Is that fully healed? Is that going to be a problem this year? I don't know. But I look at New Orleans in 2 ways. One, I think they've got a top 5 to 7 defense right now. I think that they improved their receiver position mightily in drafting Chris Olave, who I think is going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, in signing Jarvis Landry to play in the slot. And then, obviously, they think they're going to have Michael Thomas back. Who knows what that holds? He's missed most of the last 2 years. But I think they're going to be significantly improved at receiver. But here's the one stat about the New Orleans Saints. I mean, get this. Since the Bucs signed Tom Brady, the Saints and Bucks have played 4 regular season games. All right? The Saints are 4-0, and every game has been more than a one-score game.
Wow.
The closest game has been 9 points. So, you at some point, you've got to say, okay, it's a horse crap division, from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And the team that seems to own Tom Brady and the Bucks, is a pretty good team too, and they're going to be a lot more explosive this year. So that's how I fell on New Orleans as the top seed.
Okay. I love this as well. The last time you were on, you told us, in all your years covering the NFL, this is the best division you've ever seen, the AFC West. You have Denver missing the playoffs, and I think a lot of people are high on the Chargers, but don't know what. I mean, as people in the organization told you, how did we miss the playoffs last year? They routed Cincinnati, and then were blown out by Baltimore, Houston, and Denver.
They had just a weird year last year, but you have a weird year when you have a leaky defense. They averaged 4.8 yards per opposing rush last year. They missed the playoffs because Josh Jacobs abused them in overtime in game 272 last year. And so to my way of thinking, I think the Chargers have really answered a lot of their big questions coming out of last year. They're better on the defensive line with Sebastian Joseph Day coming from the Rams. They've got 2 other, run players that they acquired in the offseason. Khalil Mack, I don't know what you're going to get out of him, but even if you get 80% of classic Khalil Mack, that's going to be a huge plus with having Bosa on the other side. So I just think they've answered a lot of the questions that they had last year when they were getting blown out by the Houstons and Denvers of the world.
Okay. And you have the Patriots going 7-10. What do you make of all the issues in New England and not who's calling the plays and all that business?
I just don't know who's going to make plays in New England. I think they're going to have to be a very heavy run team to win. They love Ramondre Stevenson, who is a sneaky, fun, high pick in fantasy drafts if you've got one. I just think I don't know that any of their receivers are certainly not even close to number 1 receivers. I don't have a good feel after being at their training camp and seeing them and listening to people talk about them and their issues. Of course, Belichick is a big factor, and everybody said, well, who's calling the plays? I think when Tom Brady was a rookie and they lost their quarterback coach, Dick Rabine, who unexpectedly died in training camp, Bill Belichick stepped in and basically coached the quarterbacks. And so I think Belichick is going to be very, very involved on the offensive side of the ball. But it remains to be seen if they have enough players who can get the job done that the mastermind is trying to get done.
Yep. Peter, we have like a minute left. You like the Titans to win that division, and the Colts also to miss the playoffs. That was a little surprising to me.
I felt bad about that because I visited Indianapolis, and I think Matt Ryan is going to be really, really good. I think they got a potentially great second-round pick in wide receiver Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. He's mature beyond his years. I think he's going to be a big factor early. And I think Jonathan Taylor is going to win his 2nd straight rushing title. There's not a lot to not like. I do like them, but I question their defense a little bit, whether they have enough playmakers there, how good Shaq Leonard is going to be for the full season. He enters the year with a back/calf injury. I have a good feeling about them. It's kind of like Denver. I'll probably live to regret not picking them for the playoffs.
You can follow him on Twitter. He's at Peter_King, and make sure you read him at NBC Sports. The Football Morning America column has been just spectacular over the years. Peter, thanks so much for the time today. We love talking to you.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.